The massive alien ship appeared over Washington, D.C. on a clear Tuesday morning. It hung in the sky, silent and still, nearly a mile long. People stopped and stared. Cars crashed. Phones rang in government offices. The military scrambled jets, but they were told to keep their distance. Commander Eric Daniels watched from the Pentagon roof as smaller craft detached from the mothership. 20 years in the Navy had prepared him for many things, but not this. Not aliens. "Commander, they're requesting to speak with our leaders," said a young officer beside him. "And they asked for a military representative too." "That's you." 3 hours later, Eric sat in a conference room facing beings that weren't human. The aliens called themselves Arcanians. They had blue-gray skin that seemed to shimmer. Their eyes were large, with pupils that changed shape as they spoke. They moved with careful grace, as if Earth's gravity was stronger than what they were used to. "Your species has developed remarkably fast," said the lead Arcanian. Its voice came through a small device on its chest. "Most races take twice as long to discover atomic energy. And your digital technology is unexpected." Dr. Lisa Martinez sat beside Eric, frantically taking notes. As the top xenobiologist in the country, she had been preparing for this moment her entire career. But all her theories were being rewritten by the minute. "We represent the Galactic Confederation," the alien continued, "a union of 37 spacefaring civilizations. We wish to extend an invitation to Earth to join us." The president leaned forward. "That's very generous. But why now? Why not 10 years ago or 50 years from now?" The Arcanian's pupils contracted to thin lines. "Recent developments make your inclusion necessary." Later, in a secure room beneath the White House, Eric and Lisa compared notes. "They're worried about something," Eric said. "Did you notice how they kept looking at each other when we asked about other civilizations?" Lisa nodded. "And their biological readings are fascinating. Their heart rate increased when discussing the outer regions of their territory. Classic stress response. They said 37 civilizations in the Confederation, but they're hiding something about the others that aren't members." A knock at the door interrupted them. An aide entered, followed by the tallest of the Arcanians. "I am Seltor, military overseer," the alien said. "I requested to speak with you privately, Commander Daniels." Lisa started to leave, but Eric shook his head. "Dr. Martinez stays. She's part of my team." The alien seemed to consider this, then nodded. "Very well. I have been authorized to share certain concerns." Zeltor activated a small device that projected a three-dimensional image in the center of the room. It showed ships firing at each other near a ringed planet. "This conflict began 8 of your months ago. The Ardenite Empire attacked our colony on Proxima Velos. They are not members of the Confederation." Eric studied the battle. His ships moved in rigid formations, almost like ancient naval warfare. "Your tactics seem predictable," he said carefully. Zeltor's skin darkened slightly. "Civilized warfare follows established protocols, but the Ardenites have begun using irregular methods." "You mean they're not fighting fair," Lisa said. "Precisely. And we are unprepared for this approach." Eric watched another exchange of fire in the projection. Both sides were maintaining perfect distances, perfect formations. It looked more like a dance than a battle. "What do you want from us?" Eric asked, though he already suspected the answer. "For now, observation only. Your species has a unique history of conflict. You adapt to warfare in ways we find concerning, yet potentially valuable." The alien's pupils expanded fully, becoming almost round. "But understand this clearly. Humans are not being invited to fight. The Confederation has strict rules about introducing new species to interstellar conflict." As Xeltor left, Eric turned to Lisa. "They're losing this war, and they're thinking about asking for our help. But they're afraid of us," Lisa replied. "Did you notice? They've studied our history. They know what happens when humans go to war." Eric nodded as he watched the alien leave. "They should be afraid." 1 year after the aliens arrived, Eric sat in a large room aboard the Arcanian command ship. The walls displayed moving star maps. Red areas showed Ardenite territory. Blue showed Confederation space. There was more red than there had been last month. "The situation has worsened," said Tor. "The Ardenites have taken 3 more systems." Eric nodded. For the past year, he had been allowed to observe the war but not participate. The rules of alien warfare still confused him. Ships fired at exact distances. They retreated when they lost a certain percentage of their fleet. It was like they were playing chess rather than fighting a war. "You're losing," Eric said simply. Zeltor's skin darkened. "We are facing challenges." A new human entered the room. Admiral George White was older than Eric, with gray hair and a permanent frown. He had fought in wars on Earth for 40 years before retiring. Now the government had called him back. "This is ridiculous," Admiral White said, pointing at the display. "They're attacking here, and here, but you're keeping your reserve fleet in defensive formation. You need to strike their supply lines." "That would violate the protocol of organized engagement," said another Arcanian. "Combat must follow established patterns." Admiral White shook his head. "War isn't about patterns. It's about winning." Later, Eric and Lisa met in the Earth Embassy on the Confederation capital world. The building was designed to look like a piece of Earth in alien territory. It had trees and grass brought from home. "I've been studying their biology," Lisa said. "There's something interesting about how their brains work. All Confederation species share a similar neural structure. They process stress and chaos differently than humans do." "What do you mean?" Eric asked. "They literally can't handle unpredictability. Their minds freeze up when too many unexpected things happen. It's why their warfare is so organized. They need that structure." Eric thought about human history, about surprise attacks and guerrilla warfare, and quick adaptations in the middle of battle. "And we thrive on chaos." Lisa nodded. "Exactly." A soft chime interrupted them. The room's display activated, showing an emergency broadcast. An Ardenite fleet had attacked a Confederation diplomatic vessel. The ship was destroyed with 10,000 civilians aboard. 3 days later, Eric was called to a secret meeting. Representatives from 12 Confederation species sat around a large table. Zeltor stood at the head. "We have reached a difficult decision," Zeltor said. "We formally request human military advisors to assist in our conflict with the Ardenites." Admiral White leaned forward. "Advisors? You need more than that." "The Confederation law is clear," said another alien. "New species cannot participate directly in warfare for 50 years after joining. The risk of cultural contamination is too great." "But we can bend that rule," said Tor. "We can accept advisors who might suggest new approaches." Eric understood what wasn't being said. They wanted human ideas without officially allowing humans to fight. "I'll need a team," Eric said. "People who think differently. People who understand warfare from different angles." 2 weeks later, Eric had his team. Kate Murphy was a tactical specialist who had written books on guerrilla warfare. Alan Rivero was a combat engineer who could build anything from almost nothing. They joined Eric and Admiral White in a planning room. "The Ardenites expect the Confederation to respond in a specific way to the diplomatic ship attack," Eric explained, showing the star maps. "They've positioned their fleet here, waiting for the counterattack." "So we don't give them what they expect," Kate said. "We hit them somewhere else entirely." Alan studied the alien technology specs they'd been given. "Their ships are powerful, but they're designed for frontal engagement. Their sensor coverage has gaps on the ventral approach." Admiral White smiled for the first time since Eric had met him. "Now we're talking. Draw up the plans. I'll convince the Arcanians to try something new." Eric looked at his team, then at the map showing the losing war. "Remember, officially we're just advisors. But what we're really doing is teaching aliens how humans fight." "God help them," whispered Kate. The Arcanian officers stared at the battle plan with wide eyes. Their skin had turned a pale blue, which Eric had learned meant deep shock. "This cannot be done," said Commander Zenith, the lead Arcanian strategist. "It violates 6 different protocols of engagement." Kate Murphy pointed at the star map. "That's exactly why it will work. The Ardenites expect you to follow those protocols. They won't be prepared for this approach." For 3 weeks, the human advisors had worked with the Confederation military. The aliens struggled to accept human ideas about warfare. Terms like ambush, feint, and decoy had to be carefully explained. "We will consider your proposal," Zenith finally said, but his tone made it clear he wouldn't. After the Arcanians left, Admiral White slammed his fist on the table. "They're going to lose this war because they can't think outside their rulebook." Eric nodded. "We need to show them, not tell them. We need a demonstration." That night, Eric met with Seltor privately. "Give us one ship," he said. "Just one small vessel. Let Kate take a crew to the Vorlex system. The Ardenites have a fuel depot there. Let us show you what humans can do." Seltor hesitated. "This is highly irregular. The Council would never approve." "Then don't tell them," Eric suggested. "Call it a reconnaissance mission." 3 days later, Kate left with a small Confederation scout ship and a crew of 15 aliens who had volunteered despite their concerns. The ship was lightly armed and not designed for combat. Ellen modified the engines to run silent and built simple devices from spare parts that could mimic the energy signatures of larger vessels when deployed in space. The waiting was the hardest part. Eric and Admiral White couldn't tell anyone about the mission. Lissa continued her research on alien psychology, trying to understand how to bridge the gap between human and alien thinking. 5 days after Kate left, Seltor burst into Eric's office. His skin was bright with excitement. "The fuel depot is destroyed. All 6 Ardenite ships guarding it were disabled or destroyed as well." Eric tried to look surprised. "How is that possible?" Captain Murphy deployed small devices that created false sensor readings. The Ardenites thought they were being attacked by a fleet from 3 directions. They split their forces. Then she attacked from a 4th direction they had left unguarded. Word spread quickly. The Confederation officers were stunned. Some were impressed. Others were disturbed. This wasn't how warfare was conducted in civilized space. The Ardenites sent a formal protest to the Confederation Council. They accused humans of introducing barbaric and chaotic elements to the conflict. They demanded all human advisors be removed. The council debated for days. Eric and his team were not allowed to attend these sessions, but Admiral White had made friends among some of the species who thought more like humans. "They're split," the Admiral told Eric after getting reports from the council chamber. "Half want us gone. Half want more of what Kate showed them is possible." Then came word of a new Ardenite offensive. 3 Confederation worlds were under attack simultaneously. The rigid Confederation response was failing, just as the humans had predicted it would. In an emergency session, the Council made a historic decision. A single human battalion would be allowed to participate in what they called a limited engagement to defend the Proxima colony. 200 human soldiers prepared for deployment. They were given modified Confederation armor and weapons. Ellen worked day and night to adjust the alien technology to suit human fighting styles. Before they left, Eric addressed the soldiers. "You will be the first humans to fight in a war among the stars. The Confederation has rules about how war should be fought. The Ardenites expect those rules to be followed. Your advantage is that you don't know those rules, and wouldn't follow them if you did." The battalion boarded 3 transport ships. They were headed to Proxima Colony, expected to arrive in 5 days. On the 4th day, Eric received an urgent message. All 3 transport ships had disappeared from sensors. The Ardenites had somehow known their route. It appeared to be an ambush. They wanted us to send humans, Lisa realized. This was a trap all along. 7 days passed with no word from the human battalion. In the Confederation Command Center, the mood was grim. Zeltor and the other Arcanian leaders spoke in hushed tones. They avoided looking at Eric and Admiral White. "They sent our people into a trap," Admiral White muttered. "I should have seen it coming." Eric wasn't ready to give up. "We don't know what happened. Humans are good at surviving when everything goes wrong." Then the communications officer jumped up from his station. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Proxima Colony." The main screen lit up. A human face appeared. It was Sergeant Frank Miller, one of the battalion's squad leaders. His face was dirty, and there was dried blood on his forehead, but he was smiling. "Sorry for the radio silence, Command. We had to stay quiet until we secured the area." The room went completely still. "Sergeant, what is your status?" Eric asked carefully. "We're operational, sir. We lost 18 people in the initial ambush, but we turned it around. The colony is secure." "Better than that." Frank's smile grew wider. "We've captured the Ardenite command post. The entire northern hemisphere of Proxima is now under our control." The aliens in the room stared at the screen in disbelief. According to all their military doctrines, 200 humans surrounded by thousands of Ardenites should have been quickly defeated. How? Zeltor finally asked. Over the next hour, they received the full report. When the human transports were ambushed, instead of surrendering or fighting a doomed battle, the human soldiers split into small teams. They abandoned their ships and used the debris field as cover. Some teams infiltrated Ardenite vessels by cutting through hull sections the aliens had never thought to guard. Other teams made their way to the surface using stolen enemy drop pods. Once on the ground, they ignored the main Ardenite forces and went straight for the command centers. "The Ardenites never expected us to ignore their combat units," Frank explained. "They thought we would fight their soldiers head-on. Instead, we slipped past them and cut off their leadership." Within 3 days of the footage reaching Confederation space, it had been seen by trillions of beings across hundreds of worlds. Aliens watched in fascination and horror as humans fought in ways they had never imagined. They didn't maintain formations. They didn't follow predictable patterns. They used the environment as a weapon. They played dead to ambush enemies. In her lab, Lisa was working with new data from the battlefield. She called Eric and Admiral White to see her findings. "Look at these brain scans," she said, showing them images. "This is an Arcanian brain under stress. See how the activity is concentrated in the logical centers. Now look at a human brain under stress." The human brain scan showed activity spread everywhere, lighting up areas for creativity, instinct, and emotion alongside logical thought. When aliens are under pressure, they fall back on training and protocols. Lisa explained. "When humans are under pressure, we become more creative, more willing to try anything that might work." Admiral White nodded. "That's why we're winning battles we should be losing." The Confederation Council was in an uproar. Some members demanded all humans be removed from the conflict immediately. Others wanted to deploy more human forces. The Ardenites sent a message that if humans continued to participate, they would consider it an escalation requiring extreme measures. Eric met with Zeltor in a private room away from the arguments. "Your people fight like nothing we have ever seen," Zeltor said quietly. "It is frightening." "We do what we need to do to survive," Eric replied. "The council is divided, but they will make a decision soon. Some want more humans. Others fear what that might mean for galactic warfare." Eric looked out at the stars. "What do you think they'll decide?" Zeltor's skin changed to a deep blue. "I believe they will request full human military involvement. The Ardenites are already changing their tactics in response to your battalion. We need to end this war quickly, before they learn to fight like you do." "Be careful what you wish for," Eric warned. "Once humans join a fight fully, we don't stop until it's finished." 6 months passed. The war had changed completely. Human ships now fought alongside Confederation fleets. Human soldiers trained alien troops. Human officers planned missions that would have been considered impossible before. Kate Murphy stood in the war room on the flagship of the Confederation fleet. She pointed at a holographic display showing Ardenite supply lines. Their ships always take the same routes, she explained to the alien commanders. They're predictable. We can use that against them. Her plan was simple but effective. Place small stealth mines along Ardenite shipping lanes. Not enough to destroy their ships, but enough to force them to choose different routes. Routes that would lead them into carefully prepared traps. The aliens had trouble understanding the concept at first. In their minds, warfare had clear boundaries and rules. Kate's strategies seemed dishonest, but they couldn't argue with the results. On Earth, factories worked day and night building new weapons and ships. Humans had been waiting for a chance to prove themselves among the stars. This war was their opportunity. Eric watched all this with growing concern. He stood with Lisa on the observation deck of a space station, looking down at a planet where a battle had recently ended. "We're winning," he said, "but at what cost?" "You don't approve of how we're fighting?" Lisa asked. "It's not that. Kate's tactics are brilliant. Alan's weapons work perfectly. But I've seen how the aliens look at us now. It's not just respect. It's fear." Below them, the planet showed scars from orbital strikes. Human forces had targeted key infrastructure rather than military bases. The Ardenites had surrendered the planet in just 3 days, far faster than any previous Confederation victory. "The Ardenites are changing their tactics," Lisa said. "They're learning from us, becoming more like us. That's what worries me." In his quarters that night, Eric received a message from Admiral White. Earth was sending its newest and most powerful ship, the U.S. Valiant. It was the first warship built with both human and alien technology. Faster, stronger, and more deadly than anything seen before. "This will change everything," the Admiral's message said. "With 5 more ships like this, we can end the war by next year." Eric didn't sleep that night. Something felt wrong. The war was progressing too quickly. The aliens had accepted human help too easily after their initial resistance. The next day, he met with Lisa in her laboratory. She had been studying data from the recent battles. "Look at this," she said, showing him sensor readings from several engagements. "The Ardenites are retreating from battles they could win. They're surrendering planets without fighting to the end." "Maybe they're demoralized," Eric suggested. "Or maybe they're testing us, learning how we fight, collecting data." Before Eric could respond, alarms sounded throughout the station. The Ardenites had launched a surprise attack on a Confederation colony world. But this time, they weren't following their usual tactics. They had struck without warning, targeting civilian areas first. They had used stealth technology similar to what Alan had developed. "They're fighting like us now," Eric realized. Over the next week, similar reports came in from across the front lines. The Ardenites were adapting, using human tactics against Confederation forces. They had learned quickly. In an emergency meeting, Kate presented a new strategy. "We need to be even more unpredictable, more aggressive, hit targets they don't expect us to hit." Alan had developed new weapons as well. This device can bypass their shields completely. It exploits a weakness in their power systems. The Confederation Council approved all their recommendations. What choice did they have? The Ardenites were now fighting the human-style war. But after the meeting, Seltor pulled Eric aside. "Some council members are concerned. This conflict has changed. It is no longer a controlled engagement. The level of destruction has increased tenfold since humans joined." "War isn't supposed to be controlled," Eric said. "It's chaos. That is what frightens us." Zeltor replied. "What you call chaos, we call barbarism." And now, both sides are fighting like humans. Eric watched as more human ships arrived in Confederation space. Earth was fully committed now. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something larger was happening. Something beyond the war itself. The U.S. Valiant cut through space like a knife. It was beautiful and deadly. Admiral White stood on its bridge, proud of what humans had accomplished in such a short time. A joint human-alien fleet followed behind, the largest force ever assembled by the Confederation. "We're approaching the Ardenite home system," said the navigation officer. "All ships report ready for battle." This was it, the turning point. After months of fighting, they had pushed deep into enemy territory. This final assault could end the war. Eric watched from a communication screen aboard a Confederation command ship. He wasn't part of the attack force. Admiral White had insisted on leading this mission himself. "Be careful, George," Eric said. "Something doesn't feel right about this." The Admiral nodded. "I know, but we have to finish this." The fleet jumped into the Ardenite home system, weapons ready. But instead of the heavy resistance they expected, they found only a small defensive force. "Where is their main fleet?" White demanded. Sensors showed the Ardenite capital world ahead. It was largely undefended. The powerful ships that should have been protecting it were gone. "Admiral," Eric said over the comm, "this could be a trap. Pull back and regroup." But White saw an opportunity to end the war in one decisive strike. "We continue as planned." All ships moved toward the capital world. As the fleet approached the planet, Eric received an urgent message from Lisa. "I found something in the ancient records," she said. Her face looked worried on the screen. "This isn't the first time the Confederation has used a new species as a military asset. They've done it before." "What happened to those species?" Eric asked. "They disappeared from the records afterward. But I found references to something called containment protocols that were activated after each conflict." Before Eric could respond, alarms blared. On the main screen, he saw the Ardenite fleet appear behind Admiral White's forces. They had been hiding behind one of the system's outer planets, using technology that masked their energy signatures. "It's an ambush," White shouted over the comm. "All ships, defensive formation." The battle was fierce. Human tactics met Ardenite strategies that had now evolved to match them. The aliens had learned well from watching humans fight, but the human-led fleet was still more creative, more willing to take risks. After hours of combat, the Ardenites began to retreat. Their remaining ships pulled back to defensive positions around their capital. "We've got them," White said. "One final push." That's when Alan contacted Eric from his engineering lab. "Commander, I've analyzed the data from the battle. The Ardenites weren't fighting at full capacity. Their ships were holding back power. They weren't trying to win. They were testing us." Eric immediately called Admiral White. "George, it's not what we think. Pull back now." On the screen, White looked confused. "What are you talking about? We're winning." "It's a test. The whole war might be a test. The Confederation, the Ardenites, they're studying how we fight." Before White could respond, his ship rocked with an impact. Not from Ardenite weapons, but from behind. 2 Confederation cruisers had opened fire on the Valiant. "What the hell?" White yelled. "Confederation ships are firing on us." Eric watched in horror as more Confederation vessels turned their weapons on human ships. On another screen, Lisa showed him what she had discovered: secret communications between high-ranking Confederation officials and Ardenite leaders dating back to before humans were invited to join the conflict. "It was planned," she said. "They engineered this war to see what humans would do, to test our military capabilities." Eric tried to warn the fleet, but communications were being jammed. He could only watch as human and loyal alien ships fought against the betrayers. Despite being outnumbered, Admiral White managed to destroy 1 Confederation cruiser and damage another. "All human ships, retreat to Rally Point Omega," White ordered before his communication was cut off. The Valiant turned away from the battle, engines straining. Other human ships followed. The betrayal was complete. The true nature of the conflict was finally revealed. Eric looked at Lisa. "We need to warn Earth. This was never about helping the Confederation win a war. This was about seeing what would happen if they let humans loose." 3 months after the betrayal, Earth was on full military alert. Human ships patrolled the solar system. Factories built more warships and weapons. The people of Earth prepared for possible invasion. Admiral White had escaped with most of the human fleet. The U.S. Valiant had taken heavy damage, but managed to return to Earth's space. Now it orbited above the planet, repaired and upgraded with new weapons. Eric stood in a meeting room at Earth's defense headquarters. Leaders from around the world gathered to hear his report. On screens around the room, images showed Confederation and Ardnite ships moving through distant star systems. "They're working together now," Eric explained. "The war between them was mostly stage. Their real goal was to study how humans fight." "But why?" asked the president. "Why go to such lengths?" Lisa stepped forward. She had brought all her research back to Earth. Species that control the Confederation have existed for millions of years. They evolved past violent conflict long ago. When they encounter new species that still use warfare, they consider them dangerous. "So this whole thing was a test?" asked a general. "Yes," Eric said. "And we showed them exactly how dangerous we can be." In another part of the complex, Kate and Alan worked with military scientists. They studied the alien technology they had brought back and developed new defenses. "Their ships are fast, but predictable," Kate explained to a group of officers. "They can't handle our irregular tactics." Alan pointed to a holographic display of a new shield system. "This will block their main weapons. It uses their own technology against them." Back in the main meeting room, Admiral White joined Eric and Lisa. He looked older now, with new scars on his face from the battle. "We intercepted a transmission," White said. "A meeting of the Confederation Council is scheduled for next week. They're going to discuss the human situation. We have reason to believe they're planning some kind of action against Earth." The president looked grim. "What are our options?" "We could strike first," White suggested. "My fleet is ready. We have the coordinates of their main worlds." "That would confirm their fears about us," Eric argued. "We need to show them we're not just warriors." Lisa had been quiet, studying her data tablet. Now she looked up. "There's something else in these ancient records. Previous species that were tested like us. Some were contained. Some were destroyed. But a few became allies." "What made the difference?" the president asked. "How they responded when the truth was revealed." The meeting was interrupted by an urgent message. Long-range sensors had detected a large fleet entering the solar system. Not attacking, just holding position at the edge. "It's them," White said. "Confederation and Ardnite ships together." A communication request came through. On the main screen appeared Exceltor, along with representatives from other alien species, including Ardnites. "People of Earth," Exceltor began. "We come to resolve our situation." "You mean the fake war you tricked us into fighting?" White growled. "We needed to understand your capabilities." An Ardnite responded. "Your species advances quickly. You develop weapons before wisdom. We've seen how you fight." Zeltor continued. "Your unpredictability, your adaptability, your willingness to do whatever is necessary to win. These qualities make you uniquely dangerous in our ordered galaxy." The president stepped forward. "We fought because you asked for our help. We thought we were saving lives. And that is why we are here to talk, not to fight," said Exceltor. "The Confederation is divided on how to proceed. Some wish to contain humanity within your solar system. Others see potential in alliance." "What do you mean by contain?" Eric asked, though he suspected the answer. "A quarantine field. Your ships would be unable to leave this system. Your development would be monitored." The room erupted in angry shouts. Admiral White called for immediate military response. Others argued for negotiation. In the chaos, Lisa approached Eric. "This is the moment that decides everything," she said quietly. "How we respond now determines whether humans are seen as monsters to be caged or partners to be respected." Eric looked at the alien faces on the screen, then at his fellow humans preparing for war. He thought about all he had learned about the galaxy and its ancient civilizations. about how humans appeared to species that had left warfare behind millennia ago. "We need to show them we're more than just good at fighting," he said. "We need to show them why we fight." 5 years had passed since the confrontation at Earth. The Great Hall of the Galactic Confederation was filled with representatives from dozens of worlds. Humans sat among them now, not as newcomers, but as full members. Eric stood at the speaking platform. Behind him, the stars shone through a massive window. He had aged since the war, with gray in his hair and lines around his eyes. But he stood tall as he addressed the assembly. 5 years ago, we faced a choice: fight or talk, show strength or show wisdom. It wasn't an easy decision. In the audience, Admiral White nodded. He had been the hardest to convince. His ships had been ready for battle, weapons locked on the alien fleet. It had taken Eric, Lisa, and the President all night to persuade him to stand down. "We chose to invite the Confederation representatives to Earth," Eric continued. "Not to show our weapons, but to show our worlds. Our art, our music, our cultures, the things we fight to protect." That meeting had changed everything. The aliens had walked among humans, learning why this young species fought so fiercely. They saw human children playing. They heard music and poetry. They tasted food prepared with care. They'd witnessed the deep bonds between humans. "We learned from you as well," Eric said to the assembly. "We learned that warfare can evolve beyond destruction. That ancient civilizations have found better ways to resolve conflicts." Lisa sat in the front row. Her research had been crucial. She had shown how human unpredictability in battle came from the same place as human creativity in art and science. The same qualities that made humans dangerous warriors also made them innovative problem solvers. "Today we signed the Treaty of Sol," Eric announced, "a new agreement between humanity and the Galactic Confederation." Kate and Alan watched from their seats. They had spent the last 5 years helping build bridges between human and alien technologies. Kate's tactical mind now worked on complex logistical problems. Alan's engineering skills created tools for cooperation rather than weapons. A tall Arcanian approached the platform, carrying an ornate document. It was Axial Tor, now the High Counselor of the Confederation. "This treaty recognizes the unique nature of humanity," Zeltor said. "Your species will continue to develop and explore the stars alongside us. But there is one key provision." He activated a display showing the treaty text. "Humans will never again be permitted to fight in Confederation conflicts. Your species has shown such skill in warfare, such unpredictability and adaptability in battle, that involving humans in future wars would forever change how our civilizations conduct conflict." Admiral White stood up. "We accept this restriction. Earth's military will defend human worlds only. We will provide humanitarian aid, disaster relief, and peacekeeping when asked, but we will not fight your wars." The treaty was signed. The assembly applauded. A new era had begun. Later, Eric stood with Lisa on a balcony overlooking the Confederation capital city. Lights glittered below them, a civilization thousands of years older than their own. "Did we make the right choice?" Eric asked. "We did," Lisa replied. "They feared us because we're good at fighting. Now they respect us because we chose not to." In orbit above the planet, the U.S. Valiant prepared for its journey home. Its weapons had been modified for scientific research. Its crew now included aliens learning from human creativity. On a secure deck deep within the Confederation Council building, a special chamber housed the emergency protocols. A new section had been added: human containment measures. It detailed steps to be taken if humans ever became a true threat to galactic peace. Energy shields to isolate the Sol system. Monitoring stations at strategic points. A quick response fleet kept ready at all times. The Confederation respected humans and welcomed them as members. But they hadn't forgotten what they had seen during the war, how quickly humans adapted, how fiercely they'd fought when threatened, how completely they had changed the nature of conflict in just a few months. Humans would never fight in galactic wars again. The risk was too great, not just to enemies, but to the very fabric of civilized conflict that had existed for millennia before Earth joined the stars. As Eric looked up at the night sky, he smiled. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy, not as warriors, but as creators, not feared, but respected. And deep in space, the containment fleet maintained its silent watch.